And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Luchador wrestling is something that is a phenomenon which has a cult following, and some people like it, some folks don't. I think it's very entertaining, and in fact we use the theme of it for the Battling Tops tournament at the Board Game Geek convention each year. If you ever get a chance, watch my video on that. It's very, very interesting. But the whole sport is interesting, and so this game itself is trying to take that into effect. Luchador, and in this game you're going to be rolling dice against an opponent or have two people on two folks. Certainly brings the flavor of the theme through. I like to point out that I'm taking a look at the first edition of this game. They just kickstarted the next version of it, but I don't know much about that. I'm taking a look at the first edition. Here we go. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to choose who their character is. You can be Bam Bam and Fuego, or La Tormenta Muerta, and I'm going to stop saying this in my bad Spanish pronunciation. But you're going to pick one of these folks. Who you pick doesn't really matter because they're all essentially the same. You're also going to take a card that shows your hit points. And so this card has on it, it shows you what the different moves and how much damage they do. And it shows you your starting hit points. If you play tag teams, which essentially is the players can use dice to tag in and out. You're basically playing 2-on-2. It's very similar. So we're going to talk about a two-player game. In a two-player game, one person is going to take the 4 red dice, and another person is going to take the 4 blue dice. These are identical, and both players are going to roll them at the same time onto this board. Any die that goes off the board is considered to be out, and it does not count in play. You're going to look, and some of the dice have the word pin on them, like this one does. You're allowed to re-roll those unless you're trying to pin your opponent, but you can only do that if they're below 14 hit points. Okay, so you roll again. Now, anything that says miss, they all come off the board. So here we have a miss. Here I have a hit, I have a block, and I have a reversal. My opponent has a block, and they have a reversal. So what you're going to do then is you're simply going to match the dice up with one another. So for example, a counter, I'm calling it a reversal, a counter blocks your opponent's hit and hits them. And nothing else here matches up with anything else. So the person here, the red person, because they managed to counter the blue person's one hit, will get to roll one die here. They roll this die and they've done a table slam, which does 3 points of damage to your opponent. Now, if you have a hit and your opponent does not block it, you get to hit them. And you might even be able to hit them twice if you roll 2 hits and they get through. And then you can roll both green dice and do the combination of damage that they do. This here is a chokehold and a drop kick. However, you can also decide not to use, if you get 2 green dice to roll, instead you can roll the Luchador dice. When this happens, you're going to look at your card, and again, every card is the same, but you look at your card, you roll the dice to see what you've pulled off here, and here I've just failed. I failed. You can see the big fail symbol on the die, and nothing happens. But I might have even failed and got an injury, which means I'm stunned for 1 round, which means next round I don't even get to, there's a fail and injury, I don't even get to roll 4 dice, I only get to roll 3 dice. But if I roll one of these 3 symbols here, I'll do 4, 5, or 7 damage to my opponent. Now, if my opponent is in the woozy range and I can try to pin them and I roll a pin, then on my turn I'm going to roll the pin die and see what happens. I might fail the pin, I might succeed with the pin, there's different things that can happen. I might stun my opponent. Once I roll a pin, then your opponent has a 3 count. And they're going to be rolling these dice here. There are 4 dice, and they get to roll them 3 times, and you get to shout 3, 2, 1. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to roll block or counters. So let's say you pin me. I sit here. Oh, good. Look at that. I rolled 3 counters on the first roll. Not only does that mean I'm not pinned, but now you're pinned. I managed to do a pin reversal because I rolled 3 of the same symbols. So then you roll, you'll use these blue dice, and you got 2, and that's 3. 2, you did it. You got out of the pin. But if you weren't able to do that, then you're pinned and the match is over. Or if you manage to get someone down to 0 hit points, then they're KO'd and the round is over. I'd like to tell you there was more to the game than that, but that's it. I love to tell you that there's more to this game than this, but there's not. Alright, first of all, the components are fine. The artwork is humorous. The dice, the only thing I'll say about these dice is, after our plays, already some of the sides are starting to wear off. If you're going to make a game that's using dice, then you need to imprint on the dice and have recessed dice and engraved dice rather than just printing on them, silk screening them, because it's going to come off. That being said, okay, taking that out of the picture, I'm astounded, I guess. I'm astounded that this game is so popular. I went to Board Game Geek, looked at the ratings, very few low ratings, tons of high ratings. This game won Best Family Game, and I'm scratching my head because I played it time and time and time again, and I'm not getting it. You roll dice. Your opponent rolls dice, and you see what happens. That's it. There's no strategic decisions. You say, well, if you knock your opponent's dice out, but you're both supposed to roll at the same time. So that's impossible unless you cheat and let him roll a little bit first and then you knock his dice out. So there's no skill to rolling on this board. It's not really that hard. You roll low, they'll stay on the board. But you roll and match them up. The only decisions you have are whether you're going to try to pin your opponent, which again comes down to a roll, which comes down to another roll. It just roll your boat. I'm not getting it. The only thing I can think of is that you're supposed to be standing up and screaming Luchador references and throwing dice and reading the special abilities. Dolores jumps up and kicks her opponent with both feet. Then, rebounding with a graceful backflip, she lands almost silently. On the mat, Dolores waves her fan as she dances around her fallen opponent. I suppose if you're doing that, the game is fun. And I'm convinced that's what it is. That people are so caught up in the funny theme of it all that they don't realize that they're basically playing LCR, the wrestling game. That they're just rolling dice and matching them up and see what happens. I would love some choices, even if the choices were minimal. Even if they didn't matter that much. But the choices are simply, do you want to pin? Do you want to exchange 2 dice for your special move? Well, why not, Bob? Give me the die. Cool theme. Cool artwork. No game. Alright. Well, still, obviously I'm in a minority on this one. So I'd go check out other people because obviously they're seeing something I've missed. But I'm just mind-boggled. Maybe this is another version of the Kickstarter phenomenon where people are excited about something because they backed it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just totally blind to the joys of this game. But I don't like it.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door!